You are listening to the audiobook Veilshatter, Legends of Elyndar, now available on Amazon, Audible, and wherever books are sold. Featuring our three unforgettable heroes, an epic adventure begins.
Erielle's encounter. Erielle lagged behind as the world's edge blurred beneath failing light. Each rise of the dunes felt higher than the last, her boots heavy with a clinging fatigue that went deeper than muscle or will. The others pressed forward in tight formation, their words falling behind them, tense, clipped exchanges of doubt and direction. Wind scraped bleached particles along the convex slope, polishing every stone, muffling each step. She tasted copper and brine behind her teeth, a remnant of the tincture she'd cracked in her palm to scatter the phantoms. It had worked at first, slicing through illusion with biting clarity. But now the fumes coiled behind her eyes, and guilt lapped at the hollow in her chest. The memory of her brother, his wide, laughing face when the tide swept in, the way he'd flung back a salute and never returned, stirred in her mind, too real for comfort, too near for disbelief. The mirages, she told herself, were gone. Reason should have followed, but as her foot touched the next dune, something altered in the hush. As if the desert itself held its breath. She looked up. The others were shadows against the horizon, dust silhouetted and receding, sand shifted at her feet. A patch of shadows swelled outward, becoming a presence, a fissure in the world's surface. She staggered back, heart hammering, hand diving for another vial, a reflex, pointless with reserves this low. The shadow uncurled with a fluid grace and condensed into a human form. A boy, shoulders thin beneath a silvery tunic, curls stuck to his brow just as she remembered. Water traced his cheekbones, though none fell from the sky. He smiled. It was wrong. The smile too patient, the gaze too unblinking for life. "Kieran," she managed. Her throat closed around her brother's name. The apparition cocked its head, eyes a blue just bold enough to steal her breath. "Erielle." The word rang, clear. A bell struck in the spaces alchemy couldn't reach. "Did you leave me beneath the surge, or did you forget which hand was mine?" His voice was weightless. It floated, tempting as if spoken from across a summer pond, not a salt grave. The scent of juniper and seaweed wrapped around her, notes from a childhood before the Sundering took half her kin and swept their lives beneath moon-pulled water. Erielle's knees locked, burying her boots ankle deep. Her mind whispered warnings, runecraft, thrall's work. But the force tethering her here was older than anything stitched in runes. It was need, elemental and unsorted. She closed her eyes, counting, one for every year since the drowning, one for every lute song her mother sang to ward off grief, one for each night she'd ground memory brew in secret, trying to taste the past. When she opened them, Corinne still stood before her, translucence glowing, where the setting sun pierced him with gold. His hand reached out, fingers calloused, nails blackened from shell cutting, just as they'd been the last night they sat together, plotting foolish expeditions across sleeping decks. The wind carried his voice, and the dunes echoed it back. "You let go," he accused, wading through memory. "But the river stayed. All the locks you brewed, all the vials and veils. You never once brought me out." She gritted her teeth, ignoring the sting of salt tears. "You. This isn't you. You're gone." He wavered, but did not vanish. "So you declare, little sister, if you cannot mend what the sea broke, why do you carry so many keys?" His eyes glanced to the satchel at her side, bulging with crystal and brass, remnants of potions spent most too dangerous for ordinary use, all she'd salvaged from shipwreck and market stall alike. Every instinct screamed retreat, but the rest of her stayed, rooted in a longing that wanted to believe. If the dunes had given her brother's ghost, Could alchemy grant a true return? Was there a formula, a wild blend of memory and blood, potent enough to pierce the deep? A hand brushed her shoulder from behind. She flinched, breath jerking in her chest. The touch was gentle, yet electric, a crackle she recognized as Veyran. His eyes, storm gray and wide, registered her tension immediately. Lightning glimmered faintly along the edge of his brow, a residue of word-binding fraying at the seams. "We move," he said softly, an anchor cast in the face of chaos. "Now, Erielle. He's not real." Karen wavered. Moonlight slid between his feet, turning shadow to foam. "Still," he persisted, step for step with her hesitation. "You trusted me once. Why not now? You can stop wandering these wastelands. Let go. Come back to the coast, to the decks, to songs worth singing. Stay." Erielle's knees buckled, her voice caught between defiance and longing. "If I go with you," she whispered, "what world do I wake to? Am I just another mirage, another wrong note in a song I can't remember?" The phantom's face, for the first time, grew uncertain. "Would that hurt less?" Behind her, Veyran's grip hardened. "Erielle," he repeated, holding her name as tightly as her wrist. "They weaponize grief here. Trust the living more than the dead, even when it stings." She wrenched her gaze from Karen, stumbling into the solidity of Veyran's arm. The vision faltered, losing cohesion at the edges, yet not entirely fading. For one sick heartbeat, she felt the desert tilt as if encouraging surrender. Choice became muddied, a tide she could yield to, let memory and loss wash her clean and blank. But Veyran's stormbrand hummed at her side, the aftertaste of ozone slicing through the sweetness of the mirage. She blinked, forcing resolve into slackened limbs, drawing a long drag on the air laced with silt and distant frost. Her brother's shape shimmered, lips moving voicelessly now, arms held out in supplication. Regret threatened to drown her, but she twisted free, refusing an answer. "I miss you, but I cannot follow you," she said, voice thick, pain pressed into each syllable. The figure paused, his face collapsing into brief relief. Or was it resignation? Then his mouth folded around a final word she couldn't hear. With the skirl of retreating tide, the vision collapsed inward, sucked away by the hungry sand. Only vacant wind and the memory of her decision remained. Veyran did not release her until her trembling stopped. The storm and his magic dimmed, replaced by something rawer, more companion than leader. He watched her in silence, letting the aftershock wear thin. "What did you see?" he finally asked. The question stung, less for the asking than for the trust implied. Erielle forced one shuddering laugh. "The dead," she rasped, "but not as they were, only as I wished them to be." He waited for more, and when she could not give it, he nodded, offering acceptance rather than comfort. They moved off together, the others already silhouettes against the darkening gold. The desert's hush thickened, heavy as the first hush after a funeral. Erielle pressed her last unbroken vial to her chest, her brother's favorite blend, tuned to the scent of home, but unopened since the Sundering. Its presence now felt like both curse and blessing, proof she remembered, proof she could not entirely let go. As they rejoined the others, Leora glanced at Erielle, worry writ large in every taut movement. Talon's expression tightened with his own parade of guilt, a suffering she now recognized as kin to her own. Even Sen's usual muttering failed. He stared at her with the weight of old stories best left untold. No one asked further. The desert had shown its teeth again, and the moon's rise drew the long stretch of their shadows toward Tokrith. Yet Erielle felt the balance tip inside her, a realization that the howling dunes did not just conjure loss. They measured what one was willing to surrender to it. A deep ache gnawed at her reserves. She counted her doses, feeling the cost of each, knowing she could not spare any for comfort, not when the veil between hope and horror had thinned. The group pressed on, suspicion and sorrow trailing close. Every step took them nearer Tokrith, the gleaming spires wreathed in brine mist and secrets, where moonlight pooled at the city's feet. Erielle kept her gaze trained on that distant promise, its beauty tinged with warning. She left her brother and the easy call of surrender behind her. But some part of her, the part that still brewed midnight drafts in hope of what might be recovered, understood she would carry the longing and the ache deeper still. Each was a wound the sands had pressed open, and she could only hope healing might meet her one day on the other side. From the shadowed rim of the next dune, unseen eyes lingered, eclipse thralls, or darker things, savoring the memory of temptation offered and refused. Erielle, heart bruised but intact, set her shoulders and walked on. The starlight that shivered on the horizon beckoned, thread and anchor, as destiny folded silently into the night.